Normally I kind of keep to myself and kind of do my own little thing and don't really make videos about things and such, but I did kind of want to weigh in on something and uh I didn't really want to show my face on camera for this. It's not that I'm like too cowardly to do it. I had former videos up. It's just that the one thing that I don't like about showing my face on camera is just that that's what everybody focuses on when I do, and that's kind of why I've shied away from it in the years since I've been on YouTube because I don't want to have a discussion about how I look. I mean, that's not the focus of the video, and it doesn't matter what I do. Everything gets dragged down into that discussion, which is one of the reasons why I kind of get these people that like they make animations of them, animation characters that sort of interact on screen because it has a way of forcing everybody's attention to be on what the characters are talking about rather than superficialities in the way that things actually look. But that isn't really what this video was about. My video was more about my reaction to this, sort of our embarrassing weeb years, and you know, I think that personally, this is kind of a tough video to make, because I literally, I made a comment on arrest warrant on this video, arrest warrant issued for Adam Wadham Leader, and I basically said that that they all should get life without parole. And of course, I get this response from what I can only assume is I don't know this person, but if I had to guess about who this person actually is, it's an older white gentleman, who who is fundamentally, so much of what I've criticized in the past, which is that this motherfucker still lives and operates in the world as it was when he was a kid and when he was a child, and as if the rules of socialization and the way that capitalism and the markets work and all that stuff, it still fundamentally operates the way that it did in 1950. This is a motherfucker who has been basically time warped, out of the world that he was living in and into the modern world, and has now found himself completely unable to grapple with what modern realities actually are. And I say this as a point of criticism, knowing that there's a lot of people that are like this who seem to still fundamentally be operating in the world as if it operates the way that it did when they were kids or when they were just adults, and so you get this type of response, which is that you're using an anime character, which is I forget exactly her name. God, it's been a while since I watched Data Live. I know the series. I know the exact character. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if her name actually comes to mind, which is kind of funny in my own character. Nope, doesn't. I'll have to rewatch it again. But I know the character. I remember her very well, but I don't remember the name of the character, which is funny. Which is just like me. Okay, good to know that they scare you so much. Go back to your hentai now. And I wrote back, you fuckers don't know what you're missing out on, and that's not my problem. Don't hate me because your taste in media is crappy. And then he just writes back, weeb. And that's just it. Maybe 30 years ago, maybe if you grew up, as a member of Gen X, in the old world, as the part of the MTV generation, if you were if you were a teenager in like say 1992, then I could see, fundamentally you thinking that being into Japanese entertainment and Japanese culture made you a fundamentally uncool person and sort of, made you somebody that was, a socially undesirable individual. And yet the world of 1992 has evaporated. It's gone. You know, and things don't operate. The unspoken rules of socialization don't operate the way that they did anymore. I mean, let me explain something to you, you know, entitled narcissistic assholes that might be watching this video, to the people that like to make fun of people because of the fandoms that they actually belong to, and such. If you happen to have come to this video and to the old guard in this context and such, and even to members of my own generation who have, older, we're the Oregon Trail generation, the Oregon Trail part of uh, the millennial generation, which means that we're, at the very beginning of that generation. So we're the oldest members of that generation as a group and as a cohort. But the world isn't even the same for us as it was when we were kids. And what I mean is that, when I got into anime, I had I had lived most of my life as a social outcast already. So it was sort of like the things that I was into and the things that I enjoyed only brought me friends that I didn't otherwise have. And and so, in high school, I didn't know many people. My role at that high school had not set in, and it had become such a large high school that it was not really one of those environments in which you could actually fall into a role amongst your peers that you were that was set in stone, because there were just too many people. You could disappear into the noise of the crowd very easily, and where growing up being a teenager in that environment, I fell in very quickly with the anime nerds, who by now are a little bit older, a little bit less capable because of their responsibilities to really enjoy anime to the same extent that I do, because my life has not really in the time since become one in which I've taken on more responsibilities. It's been more of a game of trying to dodge, having to take responsibilities that I don't actually want to deal with, and more take on responsibilities that I chose for myself, as an individual, rather than push in the direction of having to take on a socially prescribed role, or take on something that other people want me to do for myself. There's a much stronger instinct to push in my own direction. I don't care. I can't feel them there. I'm completely numb to their bullshit. The only thing that I want is to be more like me and less like them. And when it's at that kind of level, and I mean, I realize that I'm kind of meandering around a point here, but my primary point in this video is that I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this sort of person. I'm tired of this sort of response, and I think that, personally speaking, like, the biggest reason why I find it so disgusting and so enraging to run across it is that here we have yet another entitled narcissistic piece of shit who seems to believe that it is his place in the world, or that there is any rightful place for anybody at all, or that this rule should even exist, where somebody gets to sit as critic and make fun of everybody for what fandom they belong to. Like, we need people like that in this world at all. Let me make something clear. The formal position of this channel and myself as an individual, my blogs and all of that, is that we don't. We don't need this person at all. They're just dead weight. And the social service that they think that they're providing is actually just a cancer upon society and nothing more. Now, having gone there and said that, I'll explain, fundamentally, this kind of shit, this kind of dismissive douchebaggery, this okay weeb, this kind of invalidating language, this sort of typical trashy response that you get from the comment section of so many videos when you make an impassioned post. What I want to say about this kind of attitude is that these kind of responses, when you make fun of me for something that I enjoy, what you are doing is reminding me that in my past, I have not acted this way. I, personally speaking, have never made fun of anybody simply for enjoying something. That was not my fort. Now, I might have said something about within the anime fandom and complained a little bit about the way that so much of the fandom has broken towards, what we would consider to be the more mainstream show, or what I would consider to be the more mainstream shows, like, you know, uh, her being obsessed with Naruto, which, I was never, but I was never one of those people that really viciously went after the Naruto fandom. I just remember that we all that everybody, for the most part, kind of made fun of them because of the fact that I don't know. It's just a little bit typical. It's a little bit too much of a shonen anime, and it's a little bit just all about the fighting and that sort of thing. And in the show, from what we were able to grasp from it, and it was just like here's yet another show where some kid beats up everybody, and that's kind of like the premise of the show. And it wasn't really what I was into when I was a kid. I was it's a little bit of a self consciousness about it, but not really like it's not really like I'm embarrassed about it. It's more like a worry about what other people might think about it, which I don't know. I don't really care that much though, and I mean I was pretty much into like the anime romances and such back in the day, and I was a big fan of like Kimi ga no Zumu-in, and that was which is in America known as Rumbling Hearts, and the fact that that show didn't get as much attention as I felt it deserved was sort of a source of anger for me, but it wasn't like I went out of my way to make fun of people for being into what they were into. That wasn't my fort. I never I never looked down upon other people for being into being into Japanese culture, especially because it would have been hypocritical for me to do that in the first place. And in reminding me of all of that, what you, this person who's I'm highlighting on my screen, is reminding me of on a very in the most epic way possible in the comment section, basically, is that I am superior to people like this. I am a more pure-hearted person than this sort of individual. And, one of the virtues that drives me is that you don't make fun of people just for being into something. You don't hate on people because of the things that they love. I have always been and always accepted the gay community with open arms. I've always accepted the LGBT people. I've always been inclusive of them because I knew on some intrinsic level that it was immoral and disgusting to hate on people simply for the things that they loved. And that's just it. People like this have a way of reminding me. They may think that they're so much better than me. They may think that they are the superior ones, but they are reminding me that I am better. I am a better person than they are.